This is a Defocus Media production. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus.
Well, hello. It's a new episode of the Defocus Media Podcast, and I'm Jennifer Lyerly. I'm here with Dr. Daryl Glover, but he's not that important tonight, guys. We've got a much more famous and much more cool guest. Look, I just can't wait. So Dr. Marc Bloomenstein is joining us, who happens to be one of the biggest names in optometry. So that's why, Daryl, you're getting down on the second row, okay?
Yeah. And you know what? You're starting to sound more like my wife and tell me how unimportant I am. So I guess you are my work wife. So that makes perfect sense. But thanks, Jen. I really appreciate it.
I've just been around a lot longer, Daryl. I got like 20 years on you. So,
okay.
but we're sporting the same haircut. What?
You know, it's the bald head crew, man. There's nothing wrong with that.
It is truly an honor to have you here, Dr. Bloomenstein. And I can remember reading articles that you've written, listening to you. And so I'm just a little bit, if y'all hear me like fangirling a little bit, that's going to be tonight's podcast. I'm going to fangirl some, but I cannot wait to talk to you about Miotics tonight, because this is something that you've been embracing. And so we really want to learn from you to learn how we can embrace it better too. So why don't we kick things off? Like, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you practice? What is your practice like?
Well, you caught me just coming out of the lane. So, I mean, if I knew we were going to be having a Defocus Media dance party, I was like, I would have, I don't know that I would have done anything different. I just would have been dancing. But I practice here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Been doing this for a long time, 30 long, hard years. Yeah, it was actually our 30th anniversary this year, our 30th reunion.
Congratulations.
And I've only worked in a med-surg practice. So I've worked not exclusively with ophthalmologists. I like to think that I work, they work for us kind of a little bit. We tell them what to do. But we've done cataract, refractive surgery. I mean, you name a procedure, I've actually been involved with it, which has also led me, to be fortunate enough to be involved in a lot of clinical trials. I was a principal investigator, I think, in almost 23 clinical trials over my 30 years. Wow. So what's exciting is the type of practice you're in, where you're seeing what we have now, what we've done before, and also what things are coming tomorrow. So, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff.
How do you break through into that to like start clinical trials? Because I think a lot of people listening wonder, like, how do I break through and get that started in my practice?
So part of it really is that, knowing, somebody, right? I mean, I can tell you right now, I know that the Academy actually has a program set up specifically to kind of walk you through going through the clinical trial program, getting you in touch with, if you're, let's say you do a lot of scleral lenses, or let's say, your practice has a significant amount of, let's say, allergic conjunctivitis, and that there's certain companies or products that have, in the pipeline, that they have things that are coming out there, then you could reach out to them and say, I'd like to talk to somebody who's on your medical surgery side, or you're somebody who's on your research side, and let them know that you're interested in doing that. But I honestly, I think the Academy would be a good place to start. But that's a great question. Yeah. It's rewarding and it's challenging all at the same time. So.
I love it. Well, Marc, man, we want to jump into a real conversation. When I see your name,
this wasn't a real conversation, Daryl. People have been hit the 1.5, the 2.0. Let's get to the meat of this. Okay,
that's how I listen to podcasts and Audible. I mean, you get through more content quickly, right? But what I was going to say was, when it comes to innovation and technology, and I think about certain names in eye care, your name is definitely one of them. And today, man, I really want to dive in, Jen and I, into the world of Miotics and some of the new presbyopia treatments and managements that are out there, because there's a lot of innovation and technology in this space. And when we have the OG of eye care on the call, I think it's only right to dive deep and get a better understanding about it. So if you don't mind, maybe, just breaking down myotics, and let's get this party started and have a conversation.
So Daryl, I'm going to tell you right now, and you as well, Jen, when I first started practicing in 1997, I thought to myself, if there was like a Shark Tank, if there was like a show Shark Tank, which there wasn't then, like come up with an innovative product. The product that I would come up with was to resolve presbyopia. Yeah. Because age-related loss of near vision is something that afflicts every living, breathing person. We could talk about dry eye, you could talk about glaucoma, you can talk about anything. But it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter your race, it doesn't matter your gender, matters nothing. You are going to become presbyopic. So I remember even back, almost 30 years ago, we were looking for that holy grail.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we know as optometrists is that when a patient comes into the practice and we want to determine whether or not the quality of their vision is good, or if it's limited by a cataract, or if something's impeding the quality of their vision, what do? We pinhole. And I mean, the pinhole for me over the years has just always been kind of like, it's magical. Patients like, oh my God, how'd you do that? And I'm like, there's kind of like when you put epinephrine in a patient who has like a episcleritis and you're reticus removicus, you're welcome. So for me, what I like to do is literally tell patients, look, what we're doing is we're narrowing down that focus. We're taking a little bit of the blur away, and it gives you the ability. For the years, patients would say, well, can I just buy one of those pinhole glasses? Or can I just take that? And I would sell them for like $150 or $200, but nobody would buy them. But we knew that myotic pupils, we knew patients that were on pilocarpine, let's say for glaucoma, had an innate ability to be able to focus up close. So one exciting thing to me is that if you can look at something that we've done before and repurpose it, and then give our patients the opportunity to now have a functional opportunity, then it's amazing. And, there's a lot of examples within our profession, like when you think about bimatoprost, how it was a glaucoma medication that during their clinical trials, the lashes were growing so long, patients were complaining, boom, you now have Latisse, or you have patients that were using brimonidine in low doses and it would take the redness away. So now you have Lumify. So we always have known that there's that depth of focus that we can improve with myotics, but the challenge is to make it such that patients want to do it. Now, Daryl, Jen, you guys are way too young. You don't know what it was like practicing back, when patients would come in with a green top bottle, talking about headaches and talking about, they can't see at night at all, or they were having issues with, just overall blurred vision. And they were using pilocarpine 4 times a day, 2%, 4% pilocarpine, and they were doing it 4 times a day. And it was functional from the perspective of the myotic, but it was just not functional from the perspective of pilocarpine being comfortable and pilocarpine being something patients want to do. So I think over the 30 years that we've been doing this, and it's interesting because, I know this is relevant and not relevant, but it takes a long time to go through a clinical trial. And it takes a long time to kind of finesse and find the right products. I mean, we're on iPhone 16, right?
Yes.
Right. I mean, if I gave you an iPhone 1, you'd go, what's this crap? You're like, give me my Droid back.
Throw it out the window, man.
Yeah. So I feel like, over the years, we've really kind of honed down to look and find what's going to be the absolute best opportunity for our patients.
I love that backstory that you're painting, because we all know the power of the pinhole and why we're using it in our refractions to troubleshoot, but we've never been able to achieve that effect with any of the myotics that we previously had, right? You've got pilocarpine and myopic shifts and headaches and things like that. You don't create that true, really small pinhole effect, like when you're holding up the pinhole occluder. the camera inlay comes to mind, where in theory it was like, oh, I'm going to embed a pinhole inside your eye, so you're going to have this incredible depth of focus. And then obviously lots of side effects and cons with that. So we've been trying to make that pinhole effect just like our glasses, and each generation getting a little bit better. So you said you're participating in clinical trials. What miotic clinical trials have you been a part of?
So we actually were fortunate. We started, our practice started with the VIZZ clinical trial, so the pilocarpine 1.25%. The challenge with these clinical trials, and I said to you, oh yay, let's do clinical trials, is you want to see how long this drug is going to work. Well, you have to bring patients in, and then you got to test them, and you got to keep testing them and keep testing them. So especially in and around the VIZZ clinical trial, it was a couple of the visits were meant to be 10 to 12 hours for patients. So the beautiful thing about a clinical trial is that you could sit there and say, oh, hell yeah, let's do this, right? Because we know this. I mean, to be able to sit there and have patients, just partake in something that's different or something that's unique, or to be able to kind of provide that and then see how it works. But you have to have a staff that is willing to want to do that. So this was the challenge we had. Is we started enrolling patients. We had a couple patients start, a couple patients stop. So we never really did a whole lot of clinical trials with that. It's interesting you mentioned about the camera corneal inlay, because I was involved with that.
Oh, wow.
And we were involved with a couple of the other IOL type presbyopic procedures. But about, I think, it's almost a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, we started working with, as you mentioned, Daryl, LENS clinical trial, the LNZ study. And this was another miotic study, but it was different because it's not a pilocarpine based miotic. And, if you step backwards and think about it, they're muscarinic agonists. They work on the smooth muscle of the iris, but if they also affect the ciliary body, it's when you start, Jen, as you're talking about, starting to get that myopic shift and starting to get that ciliary spasm, which is the headaches. But the bigger challenge too, though, is that if it's not tightly bound to that smooth muscle in the iris to create that constriction, then it doesn't last as long and it wears off for a lot of patients. And so when we were starting to do the LENS trial, and what they did is they used aceclidine. Now, I may or may not get this history right. I believe the drug is from Germany. And back in the day, there was a really phenomenal, just innovative ophthalmologist named Lee Nordan. And Lee actually, his college roommate, I believe, or a family member, started a small little tea company called Sobe, I think, that he got involved with. I know now we're just spilling the tea, but Lee was one of these guys that was like the mad scientist. If there was something out there, he was, the interlace laser. He was one of the first people to be involved in the interlace laser. This light adjustable lens, I think he had his fingers in that too. But what Lee did was he also was looking for a better way to correct presbyopia topically. And he knew pilocarpine just wasn't going to do it. And there's this small unknown molecule in Germany called aceclidine. And I believe it had to be formulated. It was a dry compound. They couldn't really get a good vehicle to put it in. It didn't really work all that great for glaucoma because all it really did was just worked on the muscarinic. It was very, very, very specific to the muscarinic smooth muscle of just the iris. So it was a really good miotic, but it didn't pull on the ciliary body. So it wasn't really lowering pressure a lot. But they didn't stop. So Lee and some other people basically said, if we could figure out a way to put this into a vehicle that we could actually get into the eye comfortably, then we're going to get a miotic that is going to blow the socks out of the water. And that is what you're looking at with the product now, the aceclidine that we're using. There was some of the clinical studies we looked at, maybe combining with brimonidine. They looked at different concentrations. And the exciting thing that was found in this clinical trial that I was a part of is that we had no idea. I mean, we brought patients in and we enrolled quite a few patients. the exciting thing about this study is that it was not gender specific, it wasn't race specific, and it wasn't phakic specific. So you could be pseudophakic, you could be phakic. We did want to kind of narrow down the refractive error, but they had to at least be correctable to 20/20 with their glasses. And then we just let it roll. And we saw these patients for upwards of 10 hours. I mean, we were just, it was a party. It was a party in there. It was a little bit like a frat house after about 8 hours. We had to air it out a little bit. But yeah, the results that came out of this clinical study were, in my opinion, IMO, were ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous good.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen that, phase 3 clinical study data is very, very exciting. And I think all of optometry got pretty excited to see the FDA, we just recently accepted the study data and set a PDUFA target date for next August. So you guys
crazy.
Coming really, really soon. Breaking news if you haven't heard about that.
But you know what though, Jen, it's funny is that I haven't given up on the myotics we're using now. And I think, because it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago. It's like, I always want to offer patients an option, an opportunity. And, the one thing that I love about our profession is the fact that besides the collegiality of it, you don't find this in ophthalmology. You don't find ODs. I could call up Daryl and say, Daryl, God, my social media footprint sucks. And Daryl will be like, well, because you don't have one. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Thanks for sharing. We help each other. We want to elevate our profession. And, we do the same thing with our patients. Part of it is, look, you know what? Glasses would work, but if you thought about contacts, you know what? You're in contacts, would you think about refractive surgery? Refractive surgery is probably still going to need reading glasses or some other glasses. And so to me, I look at offering a patient a way to resolve presbyopia without glasses or contacts, or with their glass and contacts, but better distance vision, as still kind of something that it's like, if I don't do it, and let's say they go to your practice, Jen, and they say, well, how come Dr. Bloomstein didn't mention this? Then you basically just have to say, because he doesn't care about you like I care about you. Mm. And you should never see that guy ever again because he's trash. And then they'll say, I feel the same way. Yeah. So to me, I still will talk to patients. I had a patient today. I just saw a patient a couple hours ago, and she wears distance contacts. And she said, I'm getting old. I can't see as well close. And I said, well, we can, give you a little bit of monovision, but I drive at night. And I really love my distance. I said, well, there's a drop available right now. And there's actually two drops available right now, whether it be Qlosi or whether it be Vuity. I said that can give you a short amount of relief. And I think that's the challenge. I said, but there is a new drug coming up that is ridiculous. It's like stupid. And I said, it just got, hopefully it's going to be around sometime next fall. I said, so let's keep that on the radar. But if you want to try one of these drops now, just to kind of, wet your beak, then we can do that. And I do have some patients that are like, yeah. And I have quite a few patients that still like using, the pilocarpine based myotics that we have now. But it's like anything. It's like literally, what we're doing right now. I'm sure there was versions of podcasting and video podcastings that was just not great, but it's like we didn't give up on that technology. We just kept getting better.
It's so great to hear that you are mentioning this, and you have patients that you prescribe the current available products for, and they're enrolled. I do think we have to get used to optometrists talking about this.
100%.
You gotta start practicing now. Start talking,
100%.
Practicing having this conversation. And
preach.
I'll do this with my patients, right? I'll tell them the products that are available out there. I have to tell you, I've been underwhelmed with. A lot of my patients have opted not to get refills after they tried it the first time. I still offer it to them if you'd like to try it. I'm happy to write you a prescription. But I tell them there's something really exciting that's coming. This is just generation 1. So hang in there with me. We'll talk about it again next year. I might have something that is even better. And I think, me holding myself accountable to have that conversation now it's going to make it so much easier because they're going to come in next fall and be like, hey, is that thing out that you told me about?
Yeah. You know, I love the direction this conversation is going, and I'm a firm believer of what both of you are saying. I mean, I think sometimes as optometrists, we always forget that we are the experts. Patients are coming to us for solutions. And if we have solutions at our fingertips, we need to prescribe them and give them an overview of everything that's available. And when you look at, you know, being able to help people see, we got to look at that tool belt. It could be glasses, it could be contacts, it could be myotics, but we got to have that conversation in order to really give that patient the best lifestyle and accommodate their needs as well. So, you know, all my colleagues that are out there, step your game up, prescribe these options, but at least have the conversation. Don't be that OD or that eye care professional out there that loses that patient and loses that loyalty because you didn't speak up and just have a simple conversation. And I'll be honest with you, to your point, Marc, we're at a great time. There's innovation in technology and it's getting better and better. We have that iPhone 16 now at our fingertips, and we want to be able to prescribe that for the patient. That way they can have the best experience.
Yeah, I'm like, where is my iPhone 16, Daryl? Thanks, I don't have that yet. But
we'll ship you one afterwards, man. We got you, baby.
Yeah, but to your specific point, though, to me, I look at all of these things as ands, not or. Right? Yeah. You when have you prescribed a pair of glasses and said, oh, you want contacts? Okay, well then I'll give you the contacts. No, you need glasses too.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would encourage all of our colleagues to do is just ask, would you be interested in hearing about a drop that can allow you to see up close without glasses? Now, I call this, it's basically like a date drug. And I know that sounds terrible. My wife, every time I say it, she goes, really, Marc? Really? I go, Jill, it's like if you're going on a date, okay? You put the drop in, you're going to be able to see for maybe 3 or 4 hours. I said, but there is a new version of this, which doesn't carry with it the brow ache that we see now, which makes your pupil last on average like 7 hours. It improves your distance vision as well as maintaining, you know, functional close vision for pretty much your whole day. And we're really excited about that. And so to me, I look at it to exactly what you said, Daryl, is having the conversation of just saying, you know what, when it comes out next year, you know, we'll talk about this again, or if you're not interested now, then I'm going to make a note in your chart so that we can revisit it next year. I also, you know what too, though, it's a way of retaining your patients in your practice.
Yeah. It's a loyalty. It's a practice builder for sure.
Totally. And I think, you know, what's funny is that the one question that's constantly asked of me is, don't I think that drops like this are going to, you know, cut into the revenue stream of an optometric practice? And I shared with you, I don't work in a traditional optometric practice. And it feels like a lot of us aren't really working in those as much anyways as we used to. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, venture capitalists or, you know, there's just consolidation of practices. But this to me adds more value because patients still have to wear glasses. They still have to wear contacts. You know, they're still needed. They're going to have to come in for their routine comprehensive exams. And so then, you know, you're almost like, you know, getting them hooked on it and they need to come back. But the bigger thing to me is that you're establishing yourself as a forward-thinking, innovative doctor. To your point, Daryl, it's like, you know, your clinical acumen shines when you tell patients, look, there's something new. Maybe not right today, but, you know, in a few months.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it's going to take away from the bottom line in the practice. To your point, I think it's going to add more value, more loyalty, and create more marketing opportunities because these patients are going to go out and spread the gospel about how great, you know, this Miotic is. And that's going to be the game changer. But then also look at the other piece. I mean, now these patients can wear non-prescription sunglasses. So that's another, you know,
love that. Yes.
The practice as well. So there's so many different ways that you can tackle this. You just got to be open-minded and follow the data, follow the clinical trials. We have some cutting edge technology at our fingertips, and it's up to us to put the word out there and make sure that these patients feel comfortable with it, but we got to have the conversation.
Go ahead,
the
Jen.
people that need to be worried are like the over-the-counter reading glasses industry. They're not buying their $20 readers at our practice anyway. That's what we're cannibalizing. So.
But the interesting thing about that, and both of you guys raised a really great point about presbyopia, is that the vast majority, 80%, I think, of all presbyopes never come to see us.
Yeah.
So they're going straight to, wherever. I know you guys have a nationally syndicated show, so the Piggly Wiggly, the Krogers, the Vons, or wherever they're going, the Walmarts, the Targets, and they're just, basically, getting it there, okay? But with that being said, the patients that do come in, or the ones that we're seeing here, are going to benefit from our ability to basically talk about that. And I kind of feel like I lost my train of thought there, but yeah. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. Oh, what I was going to say is that the patients, we knew in the clinical trial, we knew 100% who was on aceclidine and who was on the vehicle, because as the patients sat in the waiting room and they were kicking back, reading with no glasses, and they're like, oh, I'm not even wearing glasses. And it's dim, dark in there. And the person next to them is reaching for their glasses, going, yay, you, I'm happy for it. Yeah. And I mean, we had a lot of really interesting patients in our study. I had somebody she's a truck driver. And so she's, in her cab, she needs to see the distance, she needs to see here, read maps. And she said it was a game changer. She goes, the month, 5 weeks that she was on this drug, she goes, it was just absolutely incredible. She felt it changed her life. I had another patient who was an assessor. He went out and evaluated homes. He was a low hyperope. And he used to have to wear glasses, take them on. And when he put on, he was using the aceclidine in the study, he said he never thought about glasses. He never had to wear glasses. And they're jonesing for it. So to your point, Daryl, is that they're telling people, and those people are going to tell people. And I really think that it's going to be that patient to doctor momentum. And that's the one thing we did not get, and we don't get with the current myotics that we have, is that nobody's clamoring for something that works 3 or 4 hours, that has a little red. There's patients that will tolerate it, but they're not like, oh, it's not like Botox, right? It's not like, you can, it works. It's like, it's not working, right? So yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be a game changer. It's going to be incredible.
I'm so excited to hear. Now, how are you managing these patients who got to experience the clinical trial, loved it, and now they need to wait for the drops to be available?
So the study coordinator, who I happen to know intimately, she's my wife. So she basically acted as both hostess. We served them breakfast, lunch. We provided Uber rides for some people. So she would text them whatever. She's still, to this day, we finished in December, of last year. And she still, to this day, gets text messages from patients saying, do you know when we're going to get the drops? When can I, I know, seriously. I mean, it's like, I totally can understand, like these people's desire to have it. And so it's like, I know Lens is doing everything they can to make sure it gets into their hands. How am I managing them, Jen? I just don't take their calls. I just
not yet. What I think is so telling is you participated in both pilocarpine clinical trials and the aceclidine clinical trials, and you've seen like this big difference in how the clinical trials went and how the patients responded to the clinical trials. So it really is like an apples to apples comparison. Like, I think doctors listening to this are going to be like, I was hyped up last time. I was excited last time, and then it was a little underwhelming and it really hasn't taken off. Like, am I going to let myself get excited again? And you telling the experience of these clinical trial participants, like, these patients really felt something and they really want it back, versus on the pilocarpine clinical trials, it was kind of they struggled to get through the clinical trial period because it was underwhelming to them back then too.
I think, the telling part is what you said earlier, Joe, when you said about, the refill rate, or just, and at one point, and, I'm not going to brag, but I think I was like one of the number 1 or number 2 prescribers of Vuity in the country.
Yeah.
Because I believe what I'm saying to you. I still do go and tell patients, look, let's do something different then. Let's try this. But to that same point, I wasn't seeing patients coming back and saying, oh, hells yes, can I keep doing that? It was more like, I mean, it's funny is that you go to a restaurant and you say something like, it wasn't terrible. That what a resounding, right? As opposed to, oh no, you gotta go. And the aceclidine that we saw basically is patients coming back saying, oh yeah, you gotta do this.
All right, I know everyone's excited right now. Let's do a circle back on the science, because we were talking a little bit about how aceclidine is selective miotic, and that's what made it kind of a failure as a glaucoma medication, but made it really ideal for this. Obviously, we're establishing a small pupil, making that pinhole effect. What's kind of the ideal pupil size that we're trying to target that's making this drop so effective?
So, it's interesting because there was a lot of confusion, I would say, or there was a bench study that was done using optics, which was trying to find the ideal pupil size that would both give you good distance vision and significantly improve reading vision. And a lot of people thought that was around 2.5, 3 millimeters, around that area. What the group at Lens did is they said, you know what, we don't believe that. We believe smaller is better, reducing it. And so the pupil sizes that we're starting to see and we're seeing easily was like under or around 1.5 millimeters.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people were concerned about, the fact that it's like, are you going to worry about, kind of like the dimming vision? And, they're in any dark area, patients are going to have a little dimming, but the question is that small amount of dimming going to, impede your ability to function? And I had no patients, they would say, well, yeah, it does seem a little dimmer, but it wasn't an adverse event. It wasn't, oh, I want to stop using this drop. It wasn't, it's stopping you from seeing. And it was almost kind of one of those things where it's like we had to ask them that. The other thing about the 1.5 millimeter pupil is that it really did improve the distance vision, is what really kind of, that was, I was more surprised at that, watching people come in and read 5, 10, almost 15 letters logMAR improvement, which is essentially almost 3 lines of visual acuity. 2025 patients reading, like 2016. It's like, I mean, so that the smaller the pupil in this setting worked phenomenally. So to say how ideal is hard, but to say that the average patient we were seeing was sub 1.75 was spot on. Yeah, it was crazy. And it's funny too, because a couple of the patients, basically, it just felt that when we stopped doing the trial, they basically just felt like, not sad, but it became so common, right? And they became so acclimated to it that it's just like, it was like losing a loved one. And that's why I had to just ghost them. So, because honestly, that's what I do with my family members. So I just had to make them feel like they're part of the family.
Well, I think you touched on something that was heavy, and that's that, our patients, they want to live life on autopilot. They want to live seamlessly throughout the day without any headaches or any other touch points. Let's keep it real. We're all busy out here, right? And anything that we can do to enhance the quality of life, we need to make happen, because vision is the most precious sense, and it allows us to see and function as well at a high level, whether it's work, whether it's seeing family, whether it's traveling, whether it's driving, whatever it may be. So let's provide those solutions for our patients. Jen, I don't know about you, but I'm super excited. Mark, I don't know if you know this, but I'm 42, my friend. And I'm getting to that point now. I know I look like I'm 21.
You do. Damn. Well, you got a little gray. I started off like you too. I'm 43. So it's gonna happen. Yeah.
But for me, this is exciting times, man, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going through that journey of presbyopia, right? I'm not quite there yet, but I'm starting to approach with it. I'm starting to flirt with it a little bit. We're dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just happy that there's an actual solution out there for me that when I don't want to wear glasses, I can use it and I can function at a high level and be able to see safely and drive and all that other jazz as well. So exciting times, man.
Yeah.
But to your point though, the patients come to us because they want us to give them, and you said this early on, Daryl, and I totally agree with you, is they come to us because we have the clinical acumen to be able to tell them. And a lot of what us don't do is we don't tell our patients what's in their best interest. We don't give them a diagnosis. We wait for them to basically have a symptom. We're not proactive. We're not preventative enough. And patients need that. I mean, you go to a dentist or if you go to a physician and they basically wait until you're spilling sugar as opposed to basically saying, you know what, I think you might become diabetic. Let's do X, Y, or Z. Or a dentist who basically waits till you have plaque or gum decay. No. So to me, everything we can do to be preventative, and one of those things is providing our patients with better options, newer options, or just getting them excited about coming back to the eye clinic to find out what they can do.
Well, I mean, I know everyone listening is very pumped up right now. Y'all stay tuned about more information about this drop. You can hear the excitement in the crowd. People have actually gotten a chance to see patients respond to this drop. And start practicing now. Start talking to your patients about solutions for presbyopia, above and beyond glasses, and even contact lenses. Start whetting their appetite about what you're going to be able to do for them in the very near future.
Whetting their appetite. Daryl, see, we've got her. We got her.
Circle back to the taste.
Get it back to our appetites.
Well, this has been great. We appreciate the opportunity. Everyone out there, step your game up. Start prescribing, having the conversation. It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover, and the lovely Dr. Jennifer Lyerly. Marc, we appreciate this, my friend. And until next time, peace.
Hey, family. If you enjoyed this full podcast, don't miss out on more engaging content. Check out the next episode right here. And for the latest updates, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to us. Catch us in the next episode. Peace.